The Katowice Neon Trail. Katowice is often compared to American cities. In the podcast on the theme of Katowice Modernism Trail, in reference to the Silesian scratcher clouds, the city has been hailed the Polish Chicago. After dark, when we leave the railway station, we can feel like we're in Las Vegas. Currently, the neon lights return to Katowice after more than 2 decades and have experienced your trail. History takes us back to the 1960s. The socialist authorities of that time wanted to present Katowice as a prosperous and modern city. Krzysztof Krot from the Katowice Storage of Neon Lights. Good morning. Mr. Krzysztof said, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," the lecturer said. "What was the story? Could you give us a closer look at it? How did it all start with these neon signs in Katowice?" Mr. Krzysztof said, "It started around 2011 when I met Dominik Tokarski, who has been in Katowice for many years and functioned in the neon space. He was a big fan of street art, and he had already, by the time we met, gathered a large collection of neon lights with urban space. As of today, most of them are stored in the Silesia Museum, where a large structure to be created for 2 to 3 more years and was to be exhibited in the space of one of the halls in the Silesia Museum. There are gathered for the day-to-day at least 13 to 15 pieces of neon." The lecturer said, "What condition are they in?" Mr. Krzysztof said, "A few of them partly restored and were located in public space. The City of Gardens. They were the composition of Dominik Tokarski's neon lights, and there was the Millennium Cinema, a nearly 45-year-old neon sign, maybe already structurally destroyed, but the tubes were glowing. There was Adria. There was a platform neon from Katowice. In total, we have 2 pieces. We're about to move on to this because one of the art pieces was handed over by Dominik, but it is not working in the Museum of Warsaw. And one piece, fully functional, hangs all the time in the lobby, the City Gardens. There's one left over from Dominik. After several months of acquaintance with Dominik Tokarski, neons pulled us in very quickly. We opened the premises on Mariacka Street in 2010. And after a year on the wave of delight in neon, the first semaphore neon was created, a lornet with a Medusa. Semaphore, I mean lateral. The lateral structure which is animated, visible from both sides. In our case, it was a handle which tilts the bottle, and there are droplets of the drink fall freely into the glass at the bottom. It was the beginning of this phenomenon. Over time, we began to develop looking for the space. I think in 2013 we received possibility of storage, warehousing, functioning in the central zone space. This is a club cafe that is located in the City of Gardens. There we exhibit, as of today, a few neon signs just acquired from urban space. The most valuable of them is the inscription Katowice, but the main one, not the throne, but the one who was located on the building Katowice railway station. It's fully restored. The second most important is fully original, taken down at the last moment from the entrance building of God's Gift Mine. We have the Pyralis fully restored, along with the inscription God's Gift, and Randia's Resuscitation, the teapot. It's a famous tea house existing in the 1970s until the early 1980s on Stavowa Street. Of course, in the collections there are a few more later neon signs from the premises that have fallen or disappeared from the map of Katowice, including Fabularna and a few others. The lecturer said, "Which neon in this collection is the most valuable to you?" Mr. Krzysztof said, "Absolutely Katowice. History dating back to the late 1960s. So this is one of the older ones, like the Millennium Cinema. Besides, the name and the vastness of it all. These are the letters, each about 150 to 160 centimeters high. The neon itself is huge and very difficult to expose, so this is the only space where we could show it in its entirety. It is open to the public. You can enter. It's not a museum thing. It is available to supervise for any person who wants to watch. What design used to look like?" The lecturer said, "It is easier to reconstruct or create a completely new neon sign." Mr. Krzysztof said, "It's hard to compare that. Reconstruction is more difficult because trying to keep the original, we have to face those problems we encounter in the technical layer. Whether it is metal, do you need to recreate individual elements? It's easier to create something from scratch, draw a technical drawing, draw a pattern, and do something completely new. We proceed in this way, that every letter was renewed, more or less in a cycle 2-month period, to bring everything is fine. So it lasted much longer than building or creating a new neon sign, the lecturer said. Which of the neon lights from the 1960s to the 1980s would you recommend to our listeners? To recommend such gems from those years, Mr. Christoph said, we have a lot of pearls, and we will probably come while talking about the trail itself, because the most valuable we have already tried to show on the trail. That is, from the perspective and history of the city, and the design itself. These neon lights were enormous. I estimate their number for about 1,000 to 1,200 pieces in the very center of the city. I've never looked further than strictly downtown area, let's say within a 2 to 3 kilometer radius towards Korfantego or towards Rożeńskiego, where we had the Baldon Steelworks and the famous volleyball or basketball. I go back to the archives from time to time. I replenish them, because the internet is now so that people are coming up with more and more things. So roughly every 3 months you can update this knowledge. Maybe someone who listens to this podcast will be throwing in more materials to Photopolska or other places. We are trying to acquire more materials every month. People have these in their archives, things that have often photographed in family in some space and have not the slightest idea of what we look for on the facades of buildings or somewhere in the background. All these elements that they can't see. That's how we got quite a lot of material. The lecturer said, is this action still going on? Mr. Christoph said, this action will continue and we will develop it, including competitions with very interesting prizes in the form of neon signs. I think we'll announce it at the turn of the year, perhaps at the beginning of next year for further initiatives. I assume you'll find a lot more elements. The lecturer said, and where can we send such photos? Mr. Christoph said, the easiest way to do that is to send it to the department, Promotion of the City of Katowice, pr@katowice.eu. There are a lot of people there, which also deal with the Neon Trail, and these pictures sometimes flow in. To return to your question, what would have been the most interesting thing in this space of the city? We'd have to go back a long way. First, a brief historical outline. From our observations, it looks like the first neon signs in Katowice appeared in the late 1920s and early 1930s. Relatively late, because the neon tube itself, these are the years 1910 to 1920, they were of course fine-tuned. Initially, it was orange-red, because we've got a lot on our minds. Of course, everything was white. While white is difficult to create with color, it didn't show up until later, with admixtures of various other gases. It was definitely a pharmacy because it was visible in the photographs from the 1930s, from the northern end of the market square, which already does not exist anymore, more or less at height today's official Rava. There was a northern closure, the Katowice market. Next to it was a whole series of neon signs on feathers that still function. We're talking about the corner of Teatralna on Korfantego streets, beautiful neon of the Tschechien beer and Tschechien vodka, and downstairs for Katowice fans, contemporary Refresh Yourself. It was such a premises, which then Dominik Tarkowski recreated on the back of St. Mary's in a different visual form. But it was a very nice neon sign for a coagulate, lecturer said. The first neon signs that appeared in Katowice, were they animated yet? Mr. Christoph said. We have no idea what was animated or not. We're assuming it was an inscription glowing permanently. Or is it coagulate? Or the pharmacy I mentioned? Or Salamander on St. John Street? But already in the 29th year, I saw documents that a patent was filed for neon signs for cars. So it was possible in some way to animate, because the turn signal is working on a breaker basis. He shows up and disappears. Surely the one I mentioned, neon animated, had to somehow swap their functionality, that is. The background was lit once, the front was lit once. We're assuming it's already been a moving element in some way. That is, the first layer was shutting down, the second one appeared. The lecturer said, how could you have just heard? The city of Katowice has a rich history of neon signs. We are looking forward to your visit on the trail of Katowice Neon, to get acquainted with how it used to be, and even more so, as the state itself you could hear. You could see neon reconstruction from the old days. My guest on today was Mr. Christoph Kroth of Katowice Storage of Neon Lights. That's all for this episode, but we must say goodbye to Mr. Christoph, and I invite you to the next podcast. Thank you and goodbye. This project is funded by government budget. The podcasts have been read by Braden Buddy.